Okay, I'm going to show you how this particular electric furnace is actually how you get to it to service it. I've shown you pretty easy ways to look at everything inside, but you don't get that. You don't get to look in the top or anything like that. This is the only place you'll get on these. Now your sequencer, of course, is right there. You can see inside there, and you can see the elements are back in there. But you're going to have to dig wires out to put your clamp meter on and so on like that. It's not going to be real simple to work on these things. Some of these things are pretty obnoxious, and if this thing's got more than one break in it, like if it's got 3, it fills this whole thing up, and all you got is this space right here. So much for grumbling about access, but this is what you're going to be looking at. And what you're primarily looking at when you first look at one of these things is you're looking for burned wires. Burned wires are the bugaboo of electric furnaces. They use the push-on connectors like these little 1/4-inch push-ons here, and you know, they're okay. They don't hold up real good for a high amp draw. These things draw over 20 amps at 240 volts, so it's very common for these to get burned, and it'll be bubbly back in here in the wire and stuff like that. And if there's enough wire that you can cut it off and replace the terminal, that's okay if you can get back to clean wire. Otherwise, you replace the whole wire on it. Once you pull one of these things off and you push it back on, make sure it is tight. You can use a pair of pliers to crimp them down a little bit or whatever that takes, but make sure all your wires are tight. And certainly, again, with these breakers, you got a breaker right there, and the wires coming out and the wires coming in. Anytime you work on one of these things, you want to tighten those wires. Now you can kick the breaker off to tighten it here, but this you're going to have to kick the breaker off in the panel. Again, inspect these wires right here and these wires right here, and make sure they are not burned. So those burned terminals, one of the biggest problems with these electric furnaces. Also, very often when one of these terminals burns, you know, on a sequencer like this, it oftentimes takes a sequencer out too, because the heat transfers through the terminal and inside here. And once it gets in there, sometimes they're just broken off when you get them. Good idea, if you got burned terminals there and discoloration on here, just throw away the sequencer. Put a new one on it. Because that's, like I said, burned wires, biggest problem in these things. So one of the things you can do without getting your fingers in there and getting shocked, to find out if these terminals are overheated. If the wires are not burned yet, that doesn't mean they're not overheated. You can put your infrared right on them. One of the problems with these things is if I wanted to get it back in there for those terminals, I'm not going to be able to get it in there close enough. There's no way to do it. Some of them are set up so that you can get to them pretty easily, but these are so far back. I'm going through the top here now and I could get in there, but that top is not open. That's closed. This area up here is not accessible to you, because this is just a unit that sticks in there. So you can do my old trick of putting your fingers on the wires. It's kind of dangerous, got to be really freaking careful, but you're using your fingers as temperature probes. On this one, I don't think I'd try it. I end up getting a shock in that stupid thing. But if they're accessible and you don't have an infrared, you might try that if you got guts enough to do it. In any case, if you're going to check temperature
of these wires, either with an infrared meter or, like I said, if you got the guts to use your fingers, the thing's got to be running for at least 5 minutes before you start doing a test on them, because it takes a while sometimes for those wires to heat up. Anyway, that's burned wires on electric furnaces. High amp draw through those wires, so you have to expect some problems with them.